Thank you all for coming. It's a great day to celebrate Lois. She was a wonderful lady. I'm sure we all have great memories. I hope we can share them a little bit later. This is just going to be sort of an informal service. We don't have a minister. We're going to have some folks read some Bible verses and some other readings in memory of Lois. And then I would just like to open it up to anyone who would like to just share, ask you to come up to the microphone so that we can all hear you and we can get it on the recording as well. So thank you all for coming. I know some of you had to drive a long way, so thank you for that. We'll get started with the special music, and the reason I picked this song, my brother Mark, when I was asking people to give me some ideas to put in her obituary, he shared with me that when he was in high school, he sang this song as a duet for state competition or small group competition. Got a one rating on that with his duet partner, Debbie DeWitt. And he shared it with Lois, and they shared a tear over this. And so I thought, well, this would be a good memory and a good way to start the service for Lois. So we'll start with the special music today, and then we'll just follow it by folks who would like to come up who have asked to do some readings, Roger, Mom, and then we'll just start sharing memories. So thank you.
I walked today where Jesus walked in days of long ago. I wandered down each path he knew with reverent step and slow. Those little lanes, they have not changed. A sweet peace fills the air. I walked today where Jesus walked and felt his presence there. My pathway led through Bethlehem, a memories ever sweet. The little hills of Galilee that knew those childish feet. The Mount of Olives hallowed scenes that Jesus knew before. I saw the mighty Jordan roll as in the days of yore. I knelt today where Jesus knelt, where all alone he prayed, the garden of Gethsemane. My heart felt unafraid. I picked my heavy burden up, and with him by my side, I climbed the hill of Calvary. I climbed the hill of Calvary. I climbed the hill of Calvary, where on the cross he died. I walked today where Jesus walked and felt him close to me.
Bible verse in honor of Lois Ecclesiastes 3, 1 to 15. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. What gain has a worker from this toil? I've seen the bushes that God has given to the sons of men to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's minds. Yet, so that they cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I know that there is nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. Also, that is God's gift to man, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. I know that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor anything taken away from it. God has made it so in order that man should fear before him. That which is already has been, and God seeks what has been driven away.
These things were surely not made for tears, I'll tell you. Lois was my last sister to go. I've lost 2 sisters in the last 6 months, and they're in a much better place. The tears I have now are for me, not for them. We grew up. I was the youngest of the 2 girls. They were 5 and 4 years older than I, so I really didn't get to know them too much when I was little. It's when I grew up is when I really get to know my sisters. Arlene and I traveled so very much together, so we really were blessed to know each other. And I went to see Lois many times and stayed with her a couple of days. And every time I have a piece of cake or a pie or something, I remember Lois and I trying to lose weight. And here in the end, we're, 100 pounds and less. So that doesn't do any good. So eat what you want. But I certainly do miss her. We had some wonderful times. I can remember when the first place that I can remember when I was a little girl. Of course, we had no conveniences at all. So the kitchen was downstairs, and there was a room upstairs that the kitchen stove heated just a little bit. So Lois and I would sit up there and play paper dolls, which are now a delicacy now. But we had paper dolls up there. Arlene and I never did too much together. She played the piano. We always sang songs before the bus came. I can remember that. We were a close family, or she had to be then, because you couldn't do anything else. But I'm glad I got to spend some time with Lois when she moved to Fort Dodge. I was over there every day for 2 weeks. I got her out of her slump. She came, she wouldn't open her eyes. She said, I just wanted to die, want to die. So I got her talking and laughing, and then they shut us off. And I just know if I could have gone over more, that maybe not, but she's in a better place now. These songs, who picked those songs? They were so sad. Mark, today I walk where Jesus walked. Mark, my third son, was trying out for contest. So I went up and was going to listen to him do it. Him and another girl sang that song. I'm telling you, about flooded the place. It's a beautiful song, and it means so much to me as yet. And Amazing Grace is beautiful too. How great thou art. We sang that as a family. Many, many times we did. I can remember singing that. Is anybody, you guys will always remember that. I remember the first time my dad heard that, we was out on the farm. And the minute, my dad was very serious. You never see him shed a tear. We started singing that song, and immediately he started crying. I will always remember that. So both those songs are so very special to me. I took Lois's hand when I went over there, and I told her, Lois, it's Iola May, and I love you. And she mouthed, I love you. And I said the Lord's Prayer with her, and I told her, I said, when Jesus comes, take his hand and go home with him, Lois. That's what you've been wanting for a long, long time. When I first went over there, she said, Iola May, Iola May. She said, I want you to say this passage at my funeral. It's the last passage of Jude. If I can read it, I'll say it. And now, all glory to him who alone is God, who saves us through Jesus Christ our Lord. Yes, splendor and majesty, all power and authority are his from the beginning. His they are, and his they evermore shall be. And he is able to keep you from slipping and falling away, and to bring you sinless and perfect into his glorious presence with mighty shouts of everlasting joy. Amen. This is Lois's Bible, and I'm so glad I could read it out of her Bible. And I will miss them both very much. And I will wait to see them later. Thank you.
I now invite anybody who would like to come up and just share a memory of Lois to please feel free to do so. We'd love to hear from anybody who'd like to say something. I have a few I'd like to read, but I'll wait that I got from other people.
I don't know why anybody but me. I like to listen to songs from the time we were growing up, pitching manure, working on the farm, milking cows.
Here, here.
There was always a radio. Jill did nothing to help us on the farm. And I just wanted to one song, usually, I find several songs that warm my heart. I've given them to some of my siblings so that when my day comes to meet the Lord, I've asked them to personally read that song for me. This one, all of us have had our separate quiet time with Lois before she passed. I certainly did. And along with Susan, she knows more than anybody how much I treasure some of the older songs back in the day. There wasn't any cussing, there wasn't any vile words, nothing but praise, love, and heartfelt appreciation. This song, every time I hear it sung, as my wife will tell you, I weep with joy. I shared this with Lois, and we shared this moment together in tears and love and hugs. And hopefully you'll understand why. And she asked me to read this today. Like a long, lonely stream, I keep running towards a dream, moving on, moving on. Like a branch on a tree, I keep reaching to be free, moving on, moving on. 'Cause there's a place in the sun where there's hope for everyone, where my poor, restless heart's gotta run. There's a place in the sun, and before my life is done, got to find me a place in the sun. Like an old rusty road, dusty road, I am weary from the load. Moving on, moving on. Like this tired, troubled earth, I've been rolling since my birth. Moving on, moving on. 'Cause there's a place in the sun where there's hope for everyone, where my poor, restless heart's gotta run. I know there's a place in the sun, and before my life is done, gotta find me a place in the sun. You know, when times are hard and you're feeling sad, I want you to always remember there's a place in the sun, yes there is, where there's hope for everyone, where your poor heart, restless heart's got to run. I know there's a place in the sun. God bless you, Lois. And the final wish from me is that most of us, I hope, have a special place they can go to. I have a special place where I can sit by myself, pray, think, love and adore family and everything. I talked to Lois, everybody, my dad, so many friends. And my pastor told me once, when you pray and stick your finger up to God, that person will touch you. Lois, this message from Roger. Love does not die, it lives on.
So good at this. Roger, don't say a word. We're here to share good memories of Lois today, and boy, do I have a lot. So many. When we moved to Des Moines, she was there for me a lot. There for my kids. And even when we moved to Minnesota, she came up so many times and shared memories and made memories. So I thank her for that. So last year she gave me this writing that Austin did when he was 11. Erica wanted her to read it instead of me, or Austin, but he couldn't be here. So he was 11 and she'd saved it all these years, and she said, read this at my funeral. Okay. It was a paper he wrote in English. My Aunt Lois must have had to write about somebody that meant something to him, so I'll try and read it to you. It's cute. And I'm sure many of you felt like this because she made everybody feel special. Okay, my Aunt Lois. At your age, many adults will say, but my great Aunt Lois doesn't take that advice, and I'm glad. I like my Aunt Lois very much because we have a lot of things in common. She's very nice and thoughtful. I can tell when she surprises me with thoughtful gifts and does what I want to do. I ask her a lot of questions like, what was it like when you were a kid? She explains the answer to me with detail. Even though she's old, she's still playful. She's funny and she's very smart. She even knows jokes I can laugh at. She was my mom's favorite aunt when she was a kid, and she's now mine. When I visit her, we like to rent movies, to watch in her apartment almost every time we visit. We usually get funny movies because we like comedy and we like to laugh. We like to build things together just for fun. But it's been a long time since we built anything, so I can't remember what we built. She taught me how to build those things, but I taught her how to use the computer and the internet. She was willing to know, and I was willing to teach her. It was fun because she barely knew anything about it. She learned a lot from me, though. I think she's still trying to figure out how to use it, but she has started to send me emails, so I think she has an idea on how it works. One of her recent emails said, "I finally found the shift key." It was really funny when I saw that. One time we went to a toy museum with a place to play mini golf outside. Nobody did too well, but it was fun. They had a lot of cool things to look at and a lot of cool things to buy. I wasn't supposed to, but I sat on a big dinosaur and my aunt took my picture. She doesn't care if I break rules. That's what I did. I also stuck my hand in the fish tank and we went on the world's biggest merry-go-round. It was a long way there, but it was worth it. She took me there because she wanted me to have fun there, and I did. We also have gone to a large arcade just a few blocks away from her apartment. It was huge. She gave me about $20 worth in tokens to play on the machines. I played for hours. It proved again she wanted me to have some fun. Some games were free, which made it even better. It seemed like they had every arcade machine ever made. I had a great time there. But the best time I had was when she spent 3 days with my family at the Wisconsin Dells. She watched me swim and play in a small arcade they had there. We went to a Ripley's, believe it or not, and it was really cool and had interesting detailed facts. After that, we had chicken for lunch. That proves she still will travel far to be with my family. As you can see, we've had a lot of good times together. The times I've had with her are great. I can't believe she has shared so many fun times with me since she's almost 75. But she still is very energetic and likes to have fun, and hopefully there will be more good times to come. And there were a lot of good times to come. So I was very fortunate to have her in my life, the early parts and before I moved, and I want to thank Jill so much for taking over in the last part and stepping up and making sure her last few years were good too. Thank you so much.
Want to be first or me? I'm the oldest. No, you can start. You're the baby.
Lois was a fun cousin. She always made everything. Every time you were with her, you always had a good time, and she was always ready for a good time, and that was what was so special. Well, this was a long time ago, but
'Cause we're old.
I was a smoker. Because so many people were back in the 60s and the 70s or stuff, whatever. And she did too. And she was the only one in my family that I knew wasn't, we just she was kind of a rebel and was willing to try new things and just have a good time all the time. She was a really big part of our family. She shared so many Thanksgivings and Christmas, well, not very many Christmases, but Thanksgivings especially, and just special times when we would get together. Lois was always a big person that would come and make it even more fun. When we were kids, the times that we had, there would be Sunday dinner every Sunday, and before our great-grandmother died, they would be at Isla Mae and Lois's, and there'd always be all this food. And you want to say?
No,
Want to
you
talk
go
about
ahead.
it?
You go ahead.
And
I'll
paper
tell my
dolls,
story later.
like Isla Mae mentioned. Paper dolls. They had the most incredible collection, which probably would be worth a lot now if they still were around.
And Shirley Temple dolls.
And Isla Mae had the Shirley Temple doll. I don't remember that, but
Oh,
anyway, those paper dolls were really special. And I guess every Sunday we would be there at Isla Mae and Lois's, and we would go upstairs to play with the paper dolls, and I guess it would take them all week to get them all picked up because it was such a mess. And just when they would get them all picked up, then we would be back. And it would all begin again with the paper dolls. And I remember then the Sunday dinners were more at our house and Chester's house. And at that time, Isla Mae and Lois would just be so much fun. I remember you guys throwing rolls. Do you remember that? Throw rolls across the table. And fill 2 plates with food, and I mean, there was just always so much kind of revelry. And then as we got older, there were the games. Remember the squeeze and the spoon, and there were chairs that were broken, and spoons that were bent in half. It was just always such there's such really great memories. One memory, when we were in college, at college, and Lois had gotten a new car. And she took us to Chicago with her, because that's what Lois did. I mean, even with us. She took us to Chicago with her, and we stayed probably with Arlene, but that I'm not remembering. I do remember that we were downtown Chicago, which was a big deal shopping. And we had on our heels, our hats, and our gloves, because that's what you did back then. And shopped around down there looking with our Cherdan eyes up at the big buildings. And then on the way back, she let Kay and I drive. She had a new car. She let Kay and I take a turn at driving. And it was really busy. They were paved. At least the roads were paved. When we went to North Dakota, they weren't paved. But at least the roads were paved. But they had these gravel edges. What do you call them? Shoulders. They had these gravel shoulders, and they were just 2-lane, and there was a lot of traffic. Remember, there were a lot of trucks. And Kay told us, when she was driving, Kay told Lois and I...
I'm going to get
You're
told
going to
on
get
it.
told on. She told us that when she passed those trucks, she closed her eyes. I know. We just...
I was just a naive country girl.
Well, admittedly, we had not driven, like that before. I mean, we had just driven around on gravel roads. So anyway, but she didn't drive again. And probably I didn't either. But that was so much fun. And
I'll tell Lois this driving our trip.
okay, just a minute.
Yeah, okay.
She was, to me, probably Kay too, she was sophisticated and she was older. And she went to Des Moines and was in college in Des Moines, which was, a big deal. And she brought home Joe to meet everybody, and we had a family dinner, and Joe was there, and I mean, he was the handsomest thing. Remember that, Kay? I mean, this dark, exotic, handsome man.
Italian.
Oh, I know it. It was just really, we were used to farm boys. Nothing against farm boys. Farm boys are wonderful. But Joe had a level of sophistication that we hadn't seen before, and that impressed us. So she was just...
Turned out to be a jerk,
missed
but
bad.
other than that.
So Kay has this.
Well, I have one story about the car. And I was engaged to Dennis, and we were going to get married, and Lois took me and Peggy. Alma, do you remember this? Took us to Chicago to look for clothes, I guess, because I ended up with this picture hat like that. I mean, yeah, we dressed to the teeth. But we got back to Oskaloosa, and her car stopped, and it was brand new. And she had AAA, but it was paved, and AAA wouldn't answer our call. And there we were stuck in this farmhouse over by Oskaloosa. And these people in this farmhouse were weird and from someplace. They put us, Peggy and Lois and I, in their car and took us to Missouri. It's a wonder we ever made it back. And we went to Missouri. I don't know why. They never explained it. And so we got back to their house, and I called Dennis and had him come and pick up Lois and Peggy and I. And we stayed all night in Washington at his house. And then the next morning we came back to that house, and AAA came, and Dennis took us to Des Moines. And I've wondered, Sam, could you do that today? First of all, AAA should have answered us, but that was, and I can't remember what was the matter with the car, but it was something pretty major for a brand new car. And then I stayed with Lois when I went to teaching at Iowa Falls and was engaged to Dennis, and if I came back, I had to stay at the sorority house and have hours, so I stayed with Lois. And we were really close while I was spending nights with her. And I have one thing that I can always look at to remember. I got all the Beanie Babies. I mean, all the Beanie Babies. The last thing she said was get in that drawer, and I got the Beanie Babies. So I've got great-grandchildren. They're getting Beanie Babies. Anybody that's around me gets a Beanie Baby. Denise's grandkids all play with Beanie Babies. So we got our remembrance. And I'll miss her because I won't miss taking her to get her nails done. That was kind of a, because they couldn't understand her and she couldn't understand them. So that was kind of a not so fun thing, but I'll miss her.
I didn't have much planned, but I did just want to share just a few things. You know, I talked, I think it was at her 85th birthday party. Wasn't that right down the road somewhere that we had that? But one thing that I loved about Lois was we would have our date nights, and we would get together and we would go out to eat and just have a lot of good conversation, a lot of good memories. And when Hillary came into my life, that continued, and she welcomed my family and my kids. And that was one thing about Lois, was she did love you, and Jill did an awesome job with her obituary capturing just the kind of person she was. And we had this thing where we would call each other randomly, and we would just share a quick thing about our day. So I'd be at school and I'd look at my phone and I see that Lois called, and I couldn't wait to get out of school to hear what things she had to share with me today. Hey, I met with my Midas guy. I got a crush on him. Or I got my oil changed and the Midas guy was there, or whatever. Different things she had to share with me. Hey, we need to go out and have a drink. I'm ready for a drink. Things like that. So I'm just happy that my family got to be a part of that. And I'm going to miss that. And the last thing that I got to call and share with her, our little random piece of information that I got to share with her before she passed, was that Elijah's going to be a big brother. It was a stunner for all of us.
Oh, that's a happy memory. That's a hard one to top. Really? Oh, you got it. Anyone else?
So I don't have like a specific memory to share. The main thing that I will always remember about Lois is, as everyone has kind of already said, is just how she was always so upbeat, always so happy. And her smile, that's just, I'll always picturing her smile. Even when she tried to frown or be disappointed at you or show disappointment, you could just see it in her eyes. She was just still always smiling at you. So that's just how I'll always remember her.
I asked people if they couldn't come today, if they had something they wanted to send me, that I would be happy to read it. So I have a few of those things too. But before I do that, I just, when Grant and I were helping Lois towards the end, and we were assisting her with her finances, we got kind of a peek into what was important to her. And she was very philanthropic. You may already have known that, but she was very supportive of her church. It was very important to her, and she was a Presbyterian, but her philanthropy did not know any religious bounds because she also was a regular supporter of the Sisters of Charity, the Catholic Sisters of Charity. She also was a supporter of the Jewish Federation of Des Moines. So I find that pretty amazing for her because she was always one of those people that was just, she saw a need. She felt like she was called to do something like that, and she did. So in honor of that, I just pulled out a Jewish poem that I thought was fitting for Lois, just to honor her ability to see beyond her religious boundaries. This is by Hannah Sanesh, a Jewish heroine of World War II. She writes, "There are stars whose life reaches the earth only after they themselves have disintegrated and are no more. These are people whose scintillating memory lights the world after they have passed from it. These lights, which shine in the darkest night, are those which illumine for us the path." I really like that poem. And so I printed sorry, you can't sniffle in these masks. Those are right up your nose. Bear with me for a moment because I put these in a Word document and then I forgot to print it out. So I'm going to have to read it from my phone. Hang on a second. So Frank Barnard emailed me, and he, shared a couple of memories of Lois, but he said the one that I want you to read was an email that I sent her last year after she had, well, it's about 2 years ago, I guess, after she'd moved into Beaverdale Estates. He sent her this email and asked me to read it. It says, "Lois, I've done some ciphering over here, and I've come up with astonishing statistics of your aunt impact in writing alone. Birthday cards to 10 nieces and nephews for over 50 years in excess of 500. Birthday cards to offspring of your nieces and nephews, their offspring, dogs, cats, etc., probably another 500 or so. Christmas cards to all the above mentioned, 1,000. Graduation, 100. Confirmation, 100. Birth, a lot. Bar mitzvahs, 0. Grand total, give or take a few hundred, is 2,200 plus. This beats my lifetime total of 8 by a slim margin. Your contributions to our lives have been immeasurable. Love, humor, generosity, availability, role model, understanding. We are better uncles, aunts, and people as well because of it. I'm proud to be your nephew. Love, Frank." And I also got an email from Carolyn Leger. Let me find it. She says, as far as a specific memory to share, I just can't point to one. It was always fun when she was around, and she was willing to participate with anything we wanted to get into. That is the Lois that I loved. It's a common theme here for getting into some trouble, I think. My sister Peggy sent this email. If I can find it, hang on, please. She said, when I was in nurses training in Des Moines, me and my friends would ride our bikes from Iowa Lutheran Hospital to Lois's apartment by the VA hospital. It was a long trek, but she was always welcoming and would usually end up driving us back to the dorm. She was loved very much, and I'm so glad that she's at peace. So, anybody else who would like to come up, please do. I'm just going to close here by saying that, you know, being the youngest in my family, I did have a couple of special trips that Lois took me on, as she did with my brothers and sisters. I was pretty young at the time, but she took me to the state capitol, and we went to the History Museum, and then she took me on a trip to the sand dunes, must be somewhere in Wisconsin or something, and I barely remember that, but there was a lot of sand, and she was a lot of fun. So I really got to know her just in these last couple of years. And it was a real blessing for me. She had a wicked sense of humor. She was everything. She could just, you know, say the right thing and make you laugh. Even when she was failing, she never lost that. She never lost her sense of humor. She was always very with it. She could hear everything. She could see everything. She is as sharp as a tack right here. And boy, if you're going to live to 93, we can all wish for that. But it was a special blessing for me and for Grant to be able to spend that much time with her and assist her when she needed it. And I felt that it was, again, just a real blessing in my life. I certainly was not the only one that was helping out. There's been a lot of people, Kay and Anita, Carol, Matt, I mean, people that would just step up whenever she needed something and were there. And to all of those people, thank you for that, because it takes a village, as we all know. You can't do it by yourself. So, and I know she was very appreciative. She would always say that to me when I left. She would just say, thank you so much for coming. And I say, you know, Lois, this is no problem. It's my pleasure. So thank you for that. Thanks to everybody for that. I also like to thank people who submitted pictures for this slideshow. I didn't have a lot of Lois, and so thank you all that sent those pictures. That was very special, and I think it made a nice tribute to Lois. We are going to, I wanted to say one last thing. This is Lois's urn. It's surrounded by beautiful flowers. I'm not going to take those flowers. So what I'd like you guys to do is just come and take some, and take a flower home with you and put it in a little jar, and it'll remind you of Lois for a little bit longer today. So please feel free before you leave is to grab some flowers and take those, because I think that's what she would have wanted. I'm going to ask, does anybody else have anything they'd like to share? I don't want to, okay. Then I'm going to ask my brother Marv to come up, and we're going to have a closing prayer. And then it'll be followed by by How Great Thou Art that we're going to play, and then we'll be done. So again, thank you all for coming. I know this would have made Lois real happy, so thank you.
One mistake in the program, Jill. I think that was me singing that song in the first beginnings. What a beautiful voice, I
asked you. You could still do it.
Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the life of Lois. As we look back over time, we remember a lady who had smiles and laughter to brighten our days, who always made us feel good with her warm words of praise, and who lived her life with a heart made of solid gold. She was someone who always had good stories to tell. She was patient and kind, and the very best friend we could ever have. We will always cherish her life and memories and hope she knew all along how much she meant to all of us. And as we shed tears now that Lois is gone from this world, we realize that she's still keeping an eye on all of us. So let's make sure we do what she would have wanted, for us to move on, smile and laugh, open our hearts, live our lives with courage and integrity, and love one another. In your name we pray. Amen.
Let's all join together in the Lord's Prayer. Say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
I'm supposed to tell you that plant was sent by Lois's friends for Mother.
mention that Lois will be buried in the Churdan Cemetery at a later date. We can certainly keep you all updated when that happens. So thank you again all for